Hi, this is Hayden Williams, and it's another episode of Man in the Mirror, the only podcast you need if you're interested in skincare, grooming, and fragrance. Each week I talk to a male guest about life, about their work, and about those key items in their bathroom cabinets. You know, those ones that they would take in a toilet bag if they were going away, those ones they can't do without, just so that I can get some more tips. And hopefully it's things that we can pass on to you. I'm learning all the time. And this week, my guest is Remi Akande, who is a content creator and a blogger from Manchester in the northwest of England. I've met Remi at a few events, and he's always struck me. He's a super stylish guy, very humble, doing really well on the socials. He has over 30,000 followers on Instagram, makes blogging and content creating his job, his work, and I'm really keen to find out more about that, how he does, and also obviously to find out about some of the key items and some of those things that really work for him in terms of skincare and grooming. So without further ado, here is Remi Akande, and it's Man in the Mirror. I'm Hayden Williams. Here we go. Welcome along to another episode of Man in the Mirror, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined this week by Remi Akande. Hi Remi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show, Hayden. It's a real honour to be a part of what you're building and creating, and really looking forward to our episode.
Oh, thanks, Remi. No, it's great to have you on. And I explained in the intro, I came across, I'm sure I'd seen Remi's content anyway that sort of came up in my feed, but I was lucky enough to meet him at an event, and then we've sort of, as tends to be the way with some of these fragrance events or sort of beauty events, you tend to kind of run into the same people sometimes. And I've been lucky enough to see Remi at a few of these, and he's always been super friendly. And I'm kind of intrigued by what he does with content creating and blogging, but the fact that his work straddles fashion, style, and fragrance and grooming. So I thought he'd be a perfect guest to have on. It'd be great to know, first of all, Remi, I mean, how you make your living doing this. So how did it come about that you're a content creator, and were there sort of other jobs in between, or did you sort of leap from school and college into this? What was the trajectory?
Well, first of all, thank you for that intro. It was
pleasure.
It was great to hear. Appreciate that. So my background's quite interesting, a little bit intriguing, but just to go back to the very beginning, I guess I started out always having sort of a love for fashion and style, and being the best I can be. That was really instilled.
Were you a stylish youngster, Remi? Were you sort of, were you into sort of having good clothes and good style as a teenager? Was it that early?
Yeah, I think my parents always instilled, as I said, being your best.
Yeah.
In every sort of aspect of what you do. That includes appearance as well.
Yeah.
Looking your best.
It's important, isn't it, though? I mean, the sort of first impressions thing, all those cliches, but they're cliches for a reason, I suppose.
That's true. That's true. And they always had great style.
Right.
And great, appearance, and the way that they kind of carried themselves, I guess, passed on to me. And I kind of took that and sort of created my own sort of style, and things that they instilled kind of carried through, and created a love of fashion, fragrance, which we both love. We do. And I guess sort of I kind of always had that in the background, and went down the traditional academic route. School, was okay in school. Did fairly well.
Did you grow up in the Northwest, Remi? Were you in Manchester?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't aware of me, I was born in Manchester. So my parents are from Sierra Leone and Nigeria. Right. So my mother's from Sierra Leone, a little country in West Africa. I'm sure many of you heard of Nigeria, a little bit more popular. So my dad's from Nigeria. So a great mix of different cultures, and then being born in the UK, being born in Manchester was fantastic for me, and had a great upbringing. played lots of sports, did lots of extracurricular activities, acting, music, those sorts of things. So, I had a great upbringing, and that's a credit to my parents.
Yeah. And what were you sort of heading in? What did you think would be the path maybe after school and college? Were you heading in a certain direction, do you think?
I think I've always had one thing about myself is that I've always had I've never sort of seen limitations, I guess, with what I could do, and never kind of, pigeonholed myself into one sort of area. And that kind of is probably the story of my life and how I find myself where I am today. So yeah, just coming back to kind of school and everything, I kind of went through school, did fairly well, got, fairly okay grades, went to university. And because of my grades and everything, I was able to study law. So
oh, wow.
I went on a roundabout way to getting there. So I actually, because of what I did at A-levels, I ended up originally doing a course in biomedical sciences. And then that wasn't for me. I didn't feel that was for me. So I decided to pursue law.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing a law degree, and I absolutely loved it. I found it really, interesting.
Yeah.
Great undergraduate degree, and got lots from it.
And where did you go and do that, Remi?
So I did that here in Manchester.
Oh, okay, right.
So where I'm kind of based at the moment. So based between Manchester and London at the moment. Very sort of fluid between the two cities, but live in Manchester, I would say. At the moment. So studied in Manchester, and then I graduated, did a master's in law as well. And then while I was kind of at university, I was, like any student, looking for extra work and money, and had a part-time job. That was something as well that was always instilled to me, kind of making my own way in the world and not trying to rely on, my family, my parents.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a little retail job part-time when I was studying, which allowed me to, kind of broaden my horizons, meet people.
Was it a fashion place?
Yeah, so I worked in a department store. So I'd worked in high-end retail, which was great. And as I said, it really allowed me to meet many different people, more walks of life. It's
such a great insight, isn't it? And I in a very different way, but I had a spell in music retail in the old days, in the 90s or whatever. But I think regardless of the area there is, just if you end up pursuing that career in some other form, just to have had that time where you've actually helped customers and seen what people actually ask for, and it's a real sort of insightful thing, and I think it's so useful, isn't it, just to understand the real world of retail.
Yeah, definitely fantastic experience, and while I was there, I met some great people, some great colleagues, and that sort of helped me to form the character that I have today, and those great people, were fantastic in helping me grow into sort of, that kind of transition from very cliche, but from sort of, boy to man.
And it sounded like you were on a sort of, I don't know, it feels to me that you were on that path of, you did your law masters, and, one might have assumed that was your calling. So what changed to sort of make it something different?
Yeah. So I always had that entrepreneurial kind of spirit, I guess.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, from my kind of upbringing, I was always kind of doing other things as well. So whether that be things in, music, acting, I had some great experiences growing up, being on TV for different things. So, nothing major, but, kind of extra work on things like Coronation Street. I did things like Waterloo Road and that sort of stuff. So as I was acting as a young child, I was, kind of gaining experience.
Yeah.
But, nothing of notoriety, no sort of lead parts or anything like that. But, great experiences, being in the sort of media and that industry.
Yeah, and just seeing that world and seeing how it works. Yeah.
Playing football from a young age. I was keen footballer to academy level. So I was, really, of a good standard, and ended up kind of, managing to kind of travel and play football and things like that when I was growing up. So that was really good. So yeah, all these different things.
It must have been so busy though. I mean, all those different strands. Wow.
Always had sort of, never kind of sat still, and always had that personality, and that kind of carries through today into what I do. So yeah, so I guess I was happy doing my degree, but at the same time I was always kind of wondering, what could I do on outside of academics, and so I met some great guys at the shop I worked at, and we ended up kind of coming up with the idea of a business, an events company in Manchester. And there wasn't, at the time there wasn't too much in that form of kind of events and working with fashion brands and beauty brands and that sort of thing in the north. London's always kind of had that sort of industry and things going on, but there wasn't anything of that sort of nature in Manchester. So we created a company called Manchester Fashion Industry, and that was my kind of first foray into kind of working with brands and companies and agencies and that sort of thing. And
were they generally events that were public facing, Remi, or were they kind of private?
They were predominantly public facing. So, for instance, a brand would, much like a PR agency would kind of do in terms of creating an event. A brand would come to us and look to promote a collection and a new product, and we would facilitate that in an event and marketing it and getting people to come and experience it, because at the time e-commerce was kind of on the rise, but that in real life sort of networking and tangible aspect of anything for a brand wasn't really there. So that kind of facilitated that for the company and allowed people to create a real community in Manchester for networking and like-minded people, whether that be in the modelling industry, photographers, designers, that sort of thing. They sort of had a community where they could come together to share ideas and experience new things and see things in person, and that was really successful.
And is that still going now, Remi? Have you sort of moved on, or does that still exist?
It's not at the moment, but it's never kind of been a sort of a thing that we kind of close the door on. It's just kind of a natural progression. And while we were doing all these events and kind of gaining connections with brands and things, it became a natural progression to expand what we were doing. We were always kind of behind the curtain, so to speak, and never really sort of...
You didn't put yourself forward, sort of.
Yeah, put ourselves forward. And we had many conversations with many people about you're doing a fantastic job, but you need to kind of step from behind the curtain and kind of put yourselves out there. And
I guess it's that sort of business, isn't it? It's about people's faces and personalities.
Yeah, exactly. And so naturally I began to explore that, and that led into content creation, where I sort of have found myself for the last few years. So, I had those connections with brands and, from kind of the company that I built. And it was almost kind of, it seemed like a natural progression. It was kind of a strange transition in terms of, not in terms of the idea, but I guess, to kind of come from behind.
Yeah, making it about you, I suppose, isn't it? Much more.
It was always about the company. It was always really very much about, that, and then to kind of try and put the focus on myself a little bit was definitely, overcoming sort of your own personal kind of beliefs and kind of, having that self-confidence, and then also kind of other people's ideas of what you should be doing, or their ideas of who you were and who you have been, and then kind of seeing you make that leap has been an interesting one. So but it's really interesting in the way you describe that evolution, that I guess sometimes these things, when I thought about it at the beginning, it's almost this sort of binary step that people make between
doing something else, and then this big step. Oh, I'm going to be a content creator, and I think, well, how would you know you could make a living from something like that? But actually, when I hear you describe it, it does feel, like you said, sort of a kind of baby steps along the way, and you'd already made those connections with brands and with PR companies and people in your area. So perhaps it didn't feel quite as monumental as it might have done, because you were already halfway there in some ways, weren't you?
Yeah. And I think it's never, speaking to creators myself and probably you're probably the same. It's never sort of a contrived, sort of waking up one day and saying, right, I'm going to be a content creator today. It's it's sort of out of love and passion.
Passion for something.
And I think I'm sure we'll talk about fragrance at some point.
We will.
But naturally sharing things that you have a passion for and love for and affinity for is always a great thing. And
what the best starting point, isn't it?
To do
and I
that.
think that definitely comes across in the work you do. And I think, probably for most content creators, if it just for people who like your pages and follow your stuff, I think, it just feels far more genuine and sort of based in reality if it does come from real enthusiasm and passion and knowledge of a certain area, rather than just, I want to be famous or something like that. That feels a bit more vacuous, doesn't it? So I think what I'll do in the show notes is obviously link to your profile so people can check you out if they haven't already. But
thank you.
It'd be my pleasure. It would be great actually, because in Man in the Mirror, I like to ask the guest about some key kind of bathroom essentials, shall we call them, those sort of key items that really work for you in your regime. And it's great because selfishly I get to learn more about new products that I might not know about. And, I'm a real fragrance lover, but actually skincare and grooming and some of those things, I kind of still sort of feeling my way. And I just love learning about different products and people's regimes, because surprise, surprise, they're all different. So how about you, Remi? What, how about sort of shaving and grooming, that side of things? I know you have a beard, don't you? What's your regime in terms of shaving?
Over the years, I kind of, when you kind of are growing up and you try, are kind of experimenting with kind of shaving and every kind of guy goes through that period of, right, it's my first shave, and it's kind of a rite of passage, as they say. But I originally kind of started out trying to wet shave, and I'm sure that's how many people kind of begin. Yeah, and
usually isn't it? Just get the shave right.
My skin type, my skin color, it's very difficult sometimes to, wet shaving kind of causes ingrown hairs and bumps, and it didn't really kind of agree with me. Yeah, I found it kind of irritating. And
right, that's interesting.
Yeah, and over time you kind of learn, and like I said, it's rite of passage, and you go through those stages. And your first kind of shaving cream and shaving foam and getting on there, and like it, you see the guys in the adverts, and it just didn't agree with me and my skin type. So
well, it's difficult enough, actually, isn't it? I think as a teenager, it's a time of spot breakouts and all that stuff, and you don't want to be adding in, ingrowing hairs and all that stuff into the mix. And I remember that as well. It's not great, is it? So what did you move on to? Would you go electric?
Yeah, so went on to electric shaving and dry shaving, and found that agreed with my skin type a lot more. I'm fairly, I wouldn't say I'm particularly sort of hairy. I'm happy with my kind of beard at the moment. It's a fairly, solid beard. It's nothing too crazy, but I regularly visit. I've got a great barber in Manchester.
Let's give him a shout out. Who's your barber?
Yeah, my barber, Jarrell Hefe from Voodoo Cuts, it's called. So he's a great guy, great friend. He fantastic barber.
It's such a lovely relationship as well, isn't it? If you can find yourself going back to the same person, every month or 6 weeks or whatever, it's a great thing. And it sounds like someone that you can form a really good friendship with, and there's some interesting conversations, aren't there, in the barber's chair?
Definitely, and it's a great place to be, and like I said, great conversations. Not just about. It's sort of an escapism for a lot of guys, and you can talk about many different things and go sort of below the surface, deeper things, and it's not just sort of a place to kind of talk about football or something like that. It's a great place to kind of get things off your chest and have conversations, and I do with my barber, so I'm very fortunate. It's like he's like a therapist in some forms, and we have great conversations. We're very similar. We're very motivated individuals, and it's very, very lucky to have him as a friend. So.
Well, it's funny you should say that, isn't it? Because I think there's been some different sort of movements where I often talk about men and mental health and those things, but there's been some sort of experiments with trying to do more around those conversations that you have with a barber, because like you say, they can be, especially if it's someone that you get to know quite well, you can definitely go a bit deeper than just, have you been anywhere nice on your holiday, can't you? And actually for men, it's very useful and necessary, isn't it, to sort of have people that you can talk in that way. And obviously it's not always a barber, but it's a very sort of trusted relationship, and it sounds like you've got a good one there. So in terms of shaving then, just to finish that off, you've got an electric shaver. Have you got a certain brand, certain one that you go for?
I use it. It varies really. I've got a great Braun shaver that I use, Braun Series 7. So if you've probably seen that on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys will be following me after this. You'll have a look. But Braun Series 7.
They will, Remi. They will.
And coincidentally enough, I as well use I vary between that and a Remington shaver. It's very funny, I'm sure, as with the name, you probably there's obviously as you're growing up as a kid, in the playground, you get called Remington and all sorts of abbreviations of your name. So it's very funny to sort of later in life, who would have thought, sort of 10, 15 years later, you kind of I've been fortunate enough to work with the brand Remington, and it's just you kind of chuckle to yourself and think,
nice,
who would have
full
thought,
circle moment.
All those years ago, I'd be kind of, working with the brand and so they're my sort of two go-to shavers.
And does that involve you having to use any sort of pre-shave products or kind of shave balms afterwards, or are you pretty good?
Yeah, I guess my routine kind of when I do kind of give my beard a trim is kind of giving my face a good wash, like exfoliating, cleanser, or sometimes like a scrub, like a light scrub, just to kind of prepare the skin and the pores for shaving. And then I like to keep my beard at sort of about a 2.5 length. Mm-hmm. Kind of suits my style, not too long, just kind of a reasonable level for myself. I found that kind of over time you kind of experiment with different lengths and you get it wrong, and kind of over the years I've kind of figured out that 2.5 is my go-to. And over the years as well, there was in terms of trends and stuff, I remember there was kind of the big beard was kind of really trendy, and trying to grow my beard out and going through that phase. And it's just really interesting how trends and styles change over the years.
So what about skincare then, Remi? Have you got a sort of routine around moisturizers and toners and things like that? Is that something that you sort of build into your morning and evening?
Yeah. So again, over the years, kind of figuring out what's right for you. And for anybody who's listened to this and is kind of not sure what to do with kind of their skincare, if they're having any issues, I think it's important to always research and understand your skin type. And I was very much in that kind of sort of area in terms of like not being completely happy with my skin type, and I just kind of used to wash my face with soap and water, and you learn over time that that's not.
I think it's how we all start. Isn't it?
You learn over time that's probably not the best thing, and you speak to people with more knowledge, and I never really had sort of bad skin, even as a kind of teenager, but understanding my skin type is definitely important. What I need to do, and as well, the aging.
So what are the key products now that work for you? What have you built in?
So I like to. I think it's really important to have a kind of a routine. Exfoliating, using a good cleanser is definitely important. So I'd highly recommend anybody investing in a good cleanser. Washing the face, no soap and water. Put the soap down.
Yeah. And have you found yourself loyal to a certain brand, or do you kind of just
I vary, and I think I'm very fortunate enough to try many different brands.
Yeah.
So I kind of see myself as somebody who I'm in a privileged position, and as I'm sure you are as well. Getting to try different products is actually a great thing, and you learn what kind of works for you and what doesn't. But I always like to keep my skin very hydrated as much as possible. So I would say a good cleanser is definitely important. For washing the face, a good vitamin C. Kind of over the years, I just used to kind of maybe put a bit of cleanse and then just kind of whack on a bit of moisturizer. But now I'm starting to incorporate products that I think are key into my routine. So vitamin C. So if you're familiar with Ren, I'm sure you've had great experiences with Ren. So Ren do great vitamin C.
Yeah, Ren's great. We had David on their global ambassador on the last season,
and he did.
I love Ren products, so he'll be happy to hear that you like them, I'm sure.
So good vitamin C. I use products from The Ordinary.
Do you?
The Ordinary, I think, are reasonably priced and good quality products. So I do enjoy their oils, their argan oils. They have a rose seed oil as well that I use. So I find their products quite good and great price point as well. And then I've started to incorporate now as well something I think is really important, and a lot of people don't tend to sort of I think have in their kind of toiletry bag, a good SPF.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And this is something that I've kind of been sort of taught over the years. And for my skin type, black skin, we have melanin and there's always sort of a notion that you don't have to apply SPF. You've got natural, protection because of your skin color,
but you do.
Yeah. Now we're kind of being educated that no matter what skin type you are, skin color, skin type, you need to have a good SPF, and that's on days when it's not even sunny, when it's particularly living in the UK, it's deceptive, isn't it? We have probably sun, for maybe in total, one month of the entire year, really.
No, exactly. But we need it anyway. And again, are you trying different brands there, or have you found an SPF that you like?
Yeah, so again, experimenting is definitely key to finding the right one for you.
Yeah. So
at the moment, I've been kind of using the Roche and Posay.
Okay. Yeah. Great French brand.
Great brand. So their SPF is good because it doesn't leave a cast. So an issue with SPF is on dark skin is leaving like a cast, like a white cast,
sort of white powdery mark. Yeah, you don't want that.
Some brands tend to do that, so finding the right one is definitely important. So
Oh, that's interesting.
I've definitely been blessed with finding that one. I think it's been very good.
So tell me about your hair, Remi, and do you have a certain sort of styling product that you like to use, or what are you up to with hair care?
Yeah, I've had over the years I've had quite a few different sort of hairstyles. Short hair, kind of two on top, short sides, fade, whatever. Yeah. And then as I kind of got older, I kind of had
find what works.
Experiment with my hair, afro hair. You're limited with what you can do, but with you can be quite drastic. And so I've had cornrows, I've had braids, I've had I've had a huge afro. I've kind of over the years I've just experimented with many different styles and kind of found what's right for me. And that's one thing I kind of was always kind of noted for, was having like different hairstyles and stuff. So hair's definitely important for me. And now, like I'm kind of in a position where I've got a great barber, and he looks after me in terms of the hairstyle, and so I keep my hair fairly long on top now, and have sort of faded sides, sort of 0.5 on the sides. And in terms of products, it's at the moment more just kind of using a gel on my hair, to kind of get accentuate kind of curls and things at the moment. So using a hair.
That's not specific for sort of black hair, Remi. Is that just not a specific one? Or
I tend to use. I try and use kind of more kind of sort of black hair products.
Yeah.
So things like gels and stuff like that, and waxes don't always agree if they're sort of generic. Products don't sort of always agree with my hair type. I've been lucky enough to kind of again work with some great hair brands, and at the moment I kind of I'm happy with sticking to kind of more brands that are kind of applicable to kind of different hair types, and particularly black hair. It's good to find the right product for you, and products of the past have been too heavy or left kind of that white marks or on dark hair, and so I've kind of made the switch to sort of more oil-based products.
So what are the kind of brands that you've been using? What's on your shelf now for hair gels?
It varies really with sort of hair products. Just trying to think off the top of my head what I sort of... Before I used to use like S-Curl, which is like a traditional, like I'd say that's kind of a black brand.
Yeah.
That was, kind of in my younger days, and they still do great products now. Sort of now I'm kind of, sort of those sorts of brands that kind of are specifically, for kind of my hair type. So curly brands, let me think off the top of my head. You put me on the spot now.
No, don't worry. Well, look, we can. You can let me know, and we'll add them in the show notes, or just when you find it on your shelf. So don't worry for now. But the other thing, Remi, is we've been talking about your work as a content creator, and obviously our shared love of fragrance. Have you found that you've been doing more sort of fragrance content recently, and I wonder what men's reaction to it. Have you found that men sort of comment on your site, or people that you meet at events? Do you think men are sort of more open to exploring the world of fragrance now? What's your experience of that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because one thing that is quite different to, I'd say, other countries is here. I don't think we really have like a fragrance culture.
No.
You tend to see it in sort of the Middle East and other countries where they have quite an affinity for fragrance. It's kind of a big part of their routine. It's a big part of their culture.
Yeah, but less so here, isn't it? Changing maybe, but
I think it is changing. Definitely, I think people are becoming more aware of sort of niche brands, and for me, it's always been something that's been a huge part of my life, and that goes kind of right back to seeing, my dad's, fragrances and my brother's fragrances, on the shelves.
So it was in the house. It wasn't unusual.
Yeah,
obviously, your dad and your brother had plenty of bottles.
Yeah, just kind of, it was kind of picking them up and kind of trying them out for myself, and that's kind of where it started. Yeah, so my dad and my older brother, and we've always had fragrances in their sort of house, and naturally over time, I'd say I was kind of a little bit more commercial in terms of my fragrance choices, and then as I kind of got older, trying to define my own sort of likes and have my own sort of signature scents has led me into that kind of niche fragrance category, and of course, being a creator,
you get to work with some brands.
Yeah, able to work with some great brands and meet great people like yourself. So,
and is there a certain area of fragrance, or a certain sort of profile of fragrance that you tend to gravitate towards? Is there a certain sort of grouping, or what's your favourites?
As I was kind of growing up, I think I was quite keen on sort of aquatic, fresh, citrusy scents, and I guess a lot of the fragrances at the time, commercially were kind of, those were the sort of notes and bases and they had. And then, kind of growing up and trying to kind of, define my own, signature, style and scents, I've kind of changed profile and kind of gone to a little bit more sort of darker fragrances and
sort of rich, mysterious,
mysterious
kind of things.
Yeah, and a lot of the niche fragrances, that I enjoy are of that sort of profile. Still obviously I do enjoy those traditional kind of lighter, fresher, fragrances, but it's always great, when you wear a fragrance that's, a bit dark and mysterious, and you kind of get a compliment. People haven't, smelt it before, and
especially this time of year as we head into autumn, it gets a bit easier, doesn't it, to wear those more sort of richer, enveloping scents on heavier clothing and things like that. It's great. And what about today? What scent are you wearing today?
So I have I sort of I have like a fragrance wardrobe, as I like to call it. So I tend to
love it. Talk in my language.
I tend to put on sort of layer fragrances, which kind of is interesting. So I'll very rarely put on just kind of one scent.
Really? So you always layer and sort of make something new out of the various bottles.
which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Today I've got a new Juliette Has A Gun fragrance.
Ego Stratis.
Yeah, that's the one. I've got that on today.
That's a nice sort of aquatic, isn't it?
So that's very, very
salty, marine-y kind of.
Marine-y, fresh.
It's good, isn't it? I like that. And plenty of kind of punch in the base, but sort of ambroxan, musky base, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah. That's what I've got on, and then.
And did you add something to it, or is that lying on its own today?
I added something to it today. So I've got on a Tom Ford as well.
Great.
So Tom Ford. I just a couple of
made your own blend, Remi.
Tobacco vanille. So I'm.
I can imagine that working.
Yeah, I'm very again with kind of defining your own identity and style and things. It's interesting to kind of put mixed fragrances and kind of sometimes it works and
sometimes not so much.
So whatever I kind of feel like, I love it. I'll just throw it on sometimes.
Yeah,
and then other times I'll really think about the notes in this one will complement this and how will this work, and it's interesting.
Trial and error, isn't it? I think. Yeah. And one thing I like to ask the guests on Man in the Mirror is as the name suggests, we're sort of in the bathroom mirror having a look. What's your relationship with your appearance? I mean, obviously you're someone that is sort of forced in the work that you do to to sort of probably analyze pictures and images and look at yourself more than some people maybe. Yeah. And it strikes me from our conversations, you obviously you've done drama and performance and all of that, but you seem quite, I wouldn't say extrovert. Like, I don't know, and you talked about, bringing yourself in front of the camera. So, how do you feel about your appearance? I mean, you're in your late 20s, I believe. Yeah. Are you happy with what you see? Because obviously some people think, well, I want to make changes, or I might make changes in the future, or I look back and me at sort of 18 was sort of peak me, or whatever it is. But what do you think about when you look in the bathroom mirror?
I think we'll always naturally things that we'd like to improve on, things that we're we're always kind of are self-critical sometimes, but I don't think I'm
probably too much so sometimes.
Yeah, and I think being, like you said, being kind of in front of the camera a lot and naturally, creating content and pictures, you always have to kind of feel your best.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't feel fantastic in front of, especially particularly if you've had a particularly busy period, traveling, things like that, and you don't always feel 100%. But I'm not someone who's
it can take its toll on the skin.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not someone who's overly harsh on myself in terms of appearance and overly critical. I think I understand. We all age and we all kind of feel different about how we look at different periods of the day and different times. And sometimes you can go for a period where you think I look absolutely terrible. I don't feel great. And then other times you're entirely sometimes you think
you're happy.
I'm feeling good. I'm looking good.
But it sounds like you look after yourself, Remi. If I'm not mistaken, it sounds like you're someone that is quite driven. And do you are you someone that sort of does a lot of physical activity as well? Do you go to the gym and all that stuff? I imagine you do.
I try and I think gymming is important for physical health, mental health. So I always encourage staying active and keeping having a routine, and whether that's going to the gym or just getting out for a walk or whatever you do, just keeping the body ticking is definitely important for mental and physical health. So I think always having some form of exercise in your kind of day-to-day is definitely important. And as well, I think you owe it to yourself to look after yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't, nobody else will. So appearance is one thing, and define you entirely. But if you can feel good about yourself, you'll project that into the world, I guess, and the people you meet. And
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, gives that sort of that self-confidence is sort of emanates out, and it's infectious, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, definitely, and. You can definitely be overly harsh about things. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you want to build muscle. Maybe you want more hair. Maybe you want less hair. It varies.
Any of the above.
Yeah, we're all we're all kind of we're never fully satisfied with every aspect of our appearance, and that's perfectly
no. And I think it would probably be. It would be quite odd, wouldn't it? And I might be surprised, but it's sort of rare in these conversations. If someone said, "Oh yeah, I'm completely satisfied, and I wouldn't change a thing." I think that doesn't, unless you're a massive kind of narcissist, that doesn't tend to be the human condition, does it? We're self-critical, or there's certainly things that we would change. And actually, invariably, any of us would look back at a certain point and go, "Oh God, I don't know what I was bothered about. I looked really, I looked really good then." And and I should say at this point, obviously, if people check out Remi's page, very modest guy, but he's he does look really good and clearly does look after himself very well. So you should go and have a look. But finally, Remi, it's always interesting to me to find out about what brings the guest joy and what makes you happy. And it kind of, I'm aware that, maybe it sounds kind of trite and, a little bit sort of facile a question, but I always think it's kind of instructive. Like, there could be trivial things or massive things, but I wonder, what are the things that make you happy?
It's a great question. I think many different things make me happy. The big things, in life, and accomplishing goals and achievements and working towards things, and that makes me happy and fulfilling.
And I guess when they actually come true and you achieve them, that feels good.
It's been a journey so far, and I feel like I'm in a great place in life, and I get to meet great people like yourself, and work in a fantastic industry, and those sorts of things bring me happiness, and it's a blessing to be able to do what we do. And I'm fully aware of how lucky we are. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and which people don't always see, but I really can't complain. The opportunities and things that we get to experience is absolutely incredible. So, of course, that brings me happiness. But on the other hand as well, it's the simple things in life.
Yeah.
Family, friends. I've got a great partner, I've got a great family around me, I've got
for sure
great home life, and those sorts of things. The little things, and just being able to be comfortable, around my loved ones and have them in my life is an absolute blessing. And a youngish kind of guy, and I feel like I've got a great life and great structure and things to work towards and achieve. And I feel like I'm only just getting started, which is good.
I think you're right. And definitely. And if I was going to offer you, in terms of making you happy, if I was on a very, very trivial level, if I was going to offer you some sort of snack, like if we're going to a petrol station or something, would you go kind of savoury crisps and nuts things, or would you want a chocolate bar? Like what sort of food item would make you really happy?
It depends on the mood. So I want to.
Right now, if you needed a snack right now, what would you go for?
Snack-wise, I'd probably go for something sweet, maybe. A chocolate bar would be.
Yeah. You'd be happy with that.
Would be great, but I don't have an overly sweet tooth.
Do you not?
No, not particularly. I like sweet, like desserts and things like that, but in moderation. I'm not somebody who can kind of,
you don't gorge on whole chocolate
desserts. And I kind of, if it's like a very rich dessert, a small kind of rich dessert is fine, but anything other than that is too much for me. So yeah.
Damn it, Remi, you sound like you sound very controlled and
I do, and
paragon of virtue.
Yeah, I used to kind of love kind of more savoury things as well, like crisps and stuff like that. But
not so much now.
Not so much now. Everything in moderation, I guess. But my palate's probably changed over the years, and trying different cuisines and things like that. And so I'm quite a simple, easily pleased kind of guy. So yeah.
Well, I'm not quite sure. And when I'm going into the petrol station, I'll get you some kind of chocolate bar, but a small one.
A small one, yeah.
Yeah, fun size.
Exactly.
Well, look, Remi, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to find out more about you and the work that you do. And as I said, I'll add some information about where people can find you online and some of the products that you've mentioned. But just to say thanks again, and I appreciate the time you've spent, and it's fantastic to hear about the trajectory you're on, and it sounds like it's going really, really well, and wishing you lots of luck in the future. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much, Hayden. It's been an absolute pleasure, and wish you all the best with this.
I'll see you soon. We'll see each other soon at some event, no doubt.
Of course. Thank you very much.
All right. You take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
My thanks to Remi. Such an interesting guy, and I really enjoyed chatting with him. I don't know what you thought, but just really impressed with someone who's got that amount of kind of purpose and drive to what they do. I think he's really clear-sighted and is doing a great job of his content creation and the work he's doing online. If you want to follow Remi, you can do, and you should do. His website is remiakande.com, which is R-E-M for mother, I-A-K-A-N-D-E. That's remiakande.com. And he's sort of billed on there as the style lawyer, Remi Akande. And if you're more of a Instagram guy, you can find him at Remi Akande, which is R-E-M-I-A-K-A-N-D-E. Go and swell his followers even further. He's at 31,000, I think, at the moment. So absolutely storming it on Instagram. And just a really nice kind of range of content he does with fragrance, with clothing, with brands, and particularly up in the Northwest in Manchester. So check him out. Thanks for joining me this week. Hope you enjoyed it. There'll be more. You can find me at Man in the Mirror Pod on Instagram. Thanks to Remi. Thanks to you for listening. And I'll see you next time on Man in the Mirror. Take care.